Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Inside the Den. Now today we're going to take a look at Tribal Wars. Now this is a free-to-play browser-based strategy MMO. It has some really neat features, been around a while, and as you can see here 2003, 2011, and actually it boasts over 40 million registered users. So I don't think they have that many people playing right now, but to have that many registered users, you're still going to have a pretty decent player base. So let's get logged in. We're going to go ahead and jump into World 54. Now usually I would show you guys what it looks like on at the very early gameplay, but I'm actually going to drop you in because I play this game pretty often, and I'm going to show you what it's like more towards not necessarily the latter portion of the game, but kind of once you've already been in the game, you've already conquered some other villages, because the early gameplay is somewhat slow, and I'm going to be dead honest. You have your first village. And when you have your first village, you've got to go in here, and we're going to take a look at the village headquarters real quick, and we're going to unhide all these completed buildings. And you've got a lot of these completed buildings. You can see I've completed them, but in the very early going, you're going to take and you don't have any of those buildings really started at all. So you have to start building up all these different villages, and you start with your very first village. And as you build up your first village, you take and you recruit different units that will fight for you. You can see here, this is a very defensive village. I've got, spears and archers and scouts, some light cavalry to be able to do some harvesting with, which we'll talk about in a minute, and then some heavy cavalry, which is a heavy defensive unit, and a few catapults to be able to also be very defensive. So in the very early going, when you first start out, let's go to I actually just conquered a couple villages, so we'll go to one of those real quick, and let's take a look at bring them all up here, and let's take a look at 36. Okay, so here you can see I just conquered this village, so we can go in the reports here and we can take a look at that. You can see right there, Heldenfeld conquers Orzammar. Now, we'll get back to the conquering, but that's essentially how you take other villages. So in the game, it's all about other players are having these other villages. You can see I just recently conquered a couple villages. They were really easy because they were from a player that was actually in my tribe that recently left the game. And so he kind of had the villages unmanned, just basically saying, hey, I'm out of the game. You guys can go ahead and take my villages. But we'll get back to that in a second. So you can see I've taken this village and I have no troops. So what I'm going to do here is I know that I'm going to make this village a defensive village. So I'm going to take and normally I would build them very similar. So I'm going to drop, I'm going to do 1,000 spear fighters, and then I'm going to do 500. Now obviously these won't be my end result numbers, but they are kind of my starting result numbers. So I'm going to take and do that, and then 500 of these, and then we'll do 50 there. And that's the very basic version of being able to recruit units to protect or to attack. We'll show you an offensive village here really shortly. You can also go into, and when you have a premium account, which doesn't cost very much, it's very inexpensive, you can go in here and do massive recruitment. So you can go ahead and just set all your villages. You can see all the different villages I have. You can set all your villages to do massive amounts of recruitment and then just hit recruit. And that's one nice thing about having the actual the premium account. And same with the troop manager. You can do the same thing here, which will automate your villages and make sure they have the levels of units that you want to have in that village for your guy. So, like I said, I just took these villages, but as you can see here, they're already built out, so I don't have to do a lot of building here. Let's go back a couple, so we can show you guys. So, like, here's a village I took, and when I took it, I was actually taking it from an enemy. So I had to take, and with my offensive villages, or my offensive units, I had to take and actually completely destroy the wall. So you can see I'm rebuilding the wall here, and in between, I've been building other village buildings while I'm rebuilding the wall. And the reason I've been able to do that is because I have a very good setup. I have a nice chunk of villages, and I usually build like 2 to 1. So for every one offensive village I build 2 defensive villages. So I have a lot of defensive units that I can move around to my villages in case I do get attacked. Now you can see up in this corner right here, I do have 4 incoming, but those are actually support units because we were at war with another tribe, and I'm kind of on the front line. So let's go ahead and take a look at the map real quick and see how that plays out. So you can see on the mini map here, kind of all the blue that's surrounded. That's all the area that my churches have influence in. And so essentially all of the units coming out of that area or any village inside of that area fights at full strength. Now I do have a few over here that are outside of the church influence, but I'm working on rectifying that by taking a village in kind of the middle there, and then I'll go ahead and build a church and be able to cover all these guys. But for the most part, you see all my villages are covered by churches. You can see here in red, you can see these are enemies. So these are different tribes that we are kind of at war with, and you can see you've got the light blue, which are allies. You can see the map is pretty extensive. I mean, we're in continent 52, and you can see the world map. We can zoom out and really see the size and scope. So you can see there's my little patch of yellow right there. So in the size and scope of the entire world, I take up a very small portion of it. And the idea is you want to grow and grow and grow. And unfortunately, you see a very large amount of red here, and those are all the tribes that we're enemies with. But you can see we do have some allies here in all this blue sector. So I mean, based on that, you can see, I mean, I've got a decent amount of villages. You can see how little that I actually occupy. You see that the game worlds are very large. So they don't have a lot of like contours. They're pretty basic. You've got these different barbarian villages, and then you've even got these bonus villages and things like that. And when you take a bonus village, you can see here, like that'll allow 33% faster recruitment in the stables, things like that. And there's, a lot of times people will gobble up and conquer those bonus villages very quick because they want those bonuses, 10% more population. That's huge, especially when your top population is 24,000. When you get 10% more and all of a sudden you can have 26,400. It's a pretty big deal having that extra population. But let's head back to my area where my units are. And you can see here, let's go ahead and take a look real quick at one of my offensive villages. So we can go here and take a look at my 101, and you can see when you go into that offensive village and you can see the recruitment. You can see I recruit quite a bit differently. So you can see I have axemen, and then I have heavy, the light cavalry. But I have a few scouts, but I don't have a lot of the other units. Now, each of the units have attributes that go along with them. So like we saw in the defensive village, you could see I use spear fighters because they're very good against cavalry. So, let's say someone like myself is coming at me, being able to stack, 3 of my defensive villages worth of units into one village would give me like 15,000 spear fighters. It would give me 7,500 archers, and it would give me 4,500 heavy cavalry. And you can see, I'll do really well because you can send multiple waves of offensive units, but you can't stack offensive units the same way that you can stack defensive units. So it can be very difficult sometimes. And then you have the bonuses from having the wall and things like that. So having your defensive units stacked properly is very important. And then you can see here with the swordsmen, you can see they're very strong with general defense and also with archer defense. So, you want to have some of those laying around in case somebody's coming at you with mounted archers. Very rarely that happens. So really, a lot of swordsmen is kind of a waste. And then, you've got your axemen, which you've got offensive strength. You can see their defense is just really poor. So you don't want to have them. And you also see here they have a requirement. So you have to actually build up your smithy to be high enough to be able to research that unit. And then you go in your archer, another defensive unit. You can see they're very good against both cavalry and with general defense. And like I said, not a lot of people use mounted archers in their offensive. Some people do, but for the most part, you're able to take those out with those units. Now your scouts are very interesting, and I'll show you exactly what a scout does. You can see they don't have a lot of stuff going on here, but what they can be used for is, let's go into my reports real quick and let's go into attacks, and we'll go back a few, and you'll see one that comes up that's a blue dot there on the side. So here we go. So I went ahead and I scouted this village. You can see defender has won, but even though he won, I was able to see these are the resources that he's got in that village. These are the actual building levels in that village. And so I can see that he has no units in that village. So I know that I can go after and send what they call a noble train after that village. And it gets really important to be able to know what you're going after because it helps you to adjust what type of units you're going to send at that village. And it also gives you the ability to send, in a case like this, I can send a lot smaller force at that village and be able to take it as long as I've got my noblemen. Now, when we talk about the noblemen, you get into the academy. And what you have to do is you actually, to build an academy, you have to actually have several of your buildings at certain levels. And then once you have your different buildings at certain levels, you have to mint these gold coins. And the very first nobleman will cost you 1 gold coin, and then the second one will cost you 2, and so on and so forth until you have to take and you have to build. You can see here, the current nobleman limit is 76, and to be able to build my next nobleman, I've got to have 77 gold coins, so I've got 21 more. And you can see the resources that it takes for that, and that's why it becomes very, very important while you're taking and you're rebuilding troops, or you're building up your noble trains, or you're building up your defenses, to be sending out constant waves of harvesting units that are actually going to go out, and they're going to attack the barbarian villages. And there you can see here, when I bring up my attacks, you can see like this one right here, for example, this barbarian village. You see I sent out these different guys, and then they were able to bring back and plunder this much of resources, so it's pretty much spot on with sending out, this many units. And they also were able to look at and see exactly what's going on in that village. So I can see there's no wall there, so I'm pretty safe. And they're going to build up pretty quick, because you can see here 29 timber mine, clay pit, and stuff like that. And what I can do is I can go into my village headquarters, and I can see exactly pretty much what, at level 30, it's 2,400 units per hour. So I know that to get, I can kind of calculate exactly when I need to send that unit back out. And there's some different like JavaScripting that you can use, very simple scripting that the game will allow you to use to essentially speed up the process of sending out just massive quantities of these harvesting units or groupings that are going to go out to all the different, because you're going to be sending those out to all these different barbarian villages around your regular villages, so you can really build up the different, you can really build up your stockpile of actual resources, and then you're able to build a lot of things a lot faster. Now in your rally point, that's essentially where you have the ability to either move troops around, or you're able to bring troops back if they're supporting, like this right here. You can see it's in this other village, so I'm going to go ahead and bring all those back. And then you can also use this simulator to put in X number of units against X number of units and see which one's going to win or lose. Now in this village, it's very interesting because this is the village that I actually have, and we're going to bring up the graphics here. You can see it's pretty much fully built out. You can see I do have some things going on in the different, like my stables are over here and my barracks here, and you can see there's the build time. So you can see those right in there. And you can see in my market I've got 59 of 59, so we'll get to that in a second. But then I can go on my statue, and you're able to have essentially one hero, or paladin, sorry. So you can have this one paladin, he can be sent out, and with that paladin what you can do is, as he's sent out and as he essentially this progress towards finding a new item, once that fills up, then these different items come into play. And then what you can do with these items is you're able to adjust and equip him with these different items, and you can see they do different things. Like this one increases the damage done by rams by 100%. The wall is also damaged more by the first fighting phase. And then you've got, these different lances that will help either your spears or your cavalry type fighters. And then you've got, this one, which helps your mounted archers or the defensive power, their defensive or offensive. So you have all these different items, and there's even more than this. I haven't found them all yet. There are achievements and awards that you earn once you do find all the items. So, that stuff gets really, really interesting. And then what you have is your market, and in your market, you can either take and you can, like I can take and I can say, okay, well, I want to send this many resources and I want to send it to one of my villages. So if one of my villages is deficient, like you can see here, I have a ton of wood here and a ton of clay, but I'm pretty deficient on actual iron. So I can go to one of my other villages and find a bunch of iron and then send that here and kind of even it out. And then I'll be able to either make gold coins or build different buildings or recruit different units at a much faster pace. So using your market becomes very important. Now you also have the ability to create offers that you can then put up out there for other players to look at and say, okay, well, I want to trade with this guy because I need wood and I've got iron. So I'm going to go, because, I would basically put, I've got X number of wood and then, I want iron because that's where I'm deficient. And then other players would be able to trade with me, and then, it would essentially set up like a trade route between the two, one-time trade route. Now you can use the account manager to go into and set up trade routes between your own villages, but not necessarily between other players. And then you can see here, you can do maximum duration, so you're only going out like 8 hours or something like that. And then when those offers are there, you can also see here, here's another player, and here's the offers that he's put out. So you can see the offers that they have, and he's actually offering iron, which I could very well trade for him and give him clay. But, we're kind of, right now with my tribe, we're kind of, looking at maybe being at war with these guys in soap. So I don't necessarily want to help him out. So I'm going to hold back on actually trading with him. So that's the market. And then in the smithy, you actually have to take and you have to build your smithy up. You can see mine's level 20, and it needs to be level 20 for my academy to be able to work. But as you build the smithy up and then you build the other buildings up, things like the heavy cavalry will become available. Like you can see here, it requires the stable at level 10 and the smithy at level 15. And you can see right there how powerful the heavy cavalry can be, offensive strength, general defense, cavalry defense, and archer defense. So it's a very powerful unit that you can place. And they also move very quickly. You can see right here, moves 11 minutes per field. Now it sounds like a long time, but you got to think about it when you've got a group of axes coming at you, and keep in mind that the offensive units that are moving towards your villages, or if somebody's going to attack you, they move at the speed of the slowest unit. So if he's moving a bunch of guys at me from 4 fields away, he's at 18 minutes a field, where I can take and I can move a bunch of heavy cavalry and put them in defensive position at 11 minutes a field. So that stuff, it all becomes very, very carefully orchestrated when you are getting attacked to have those different things available. But let's look at some of these other things. In the overview, you can look at a lot of different things really quickly. You can see a lot of combined. You can see units and different things like that. And then you can just go across. You can see production. So you can also take and see how much, really at a quick glance, you could see how much resources are in different villages. So I could take and I can say, okay, well, this one right here is pretty high on iron. I'm going to go ahead and send it to, this village here because it's low on iron. So you can do a lot of things really quick from these screens. You also have your transports, which that's empty. And then we have our troops, which this allows you to see all the different troops that you have, offensive, defensive, depending upon how you have your things split up. And then you're also able to create groups and things like that. And then you're also able to see all your commands. So these are all the different units that are out right now. And you can see who's attacking who and different things like that. You can also see ones that have returned. You can see these ones have returned because they just finished taking that village. Same with this one. That's why they're returning from my own village and not being withdrawn. Then you can see incoming. Right now, the only incoming we have are these from guys in my own tribe that are sending me support. You can see right there it says support. And then you can see also all the different buildings, and you can see the different levels and the different types of buildings that are there and stuff like that. So, I mean, it also gives you a quick ability to jump right in here, see the buildings, see the one where there's deficiencies, and then be able to go in and build those real quick. And then you could see research, the different buildings or the different villages that are there and the research that they have. So you can see if you can actually build different units in them yet, or if you need to go there and research them. And then you have the groups, which is basically the basic group, which I have, defensive and offensive group and stuff like that. Then in other reports, you can take and you can look at all your reports, or you can kind of define them down by basic things, whether it be trade. You can see I've traded back and forth, or defenses when I've gotten attacked. This guy, he accidentally was attacking the same village I was, and so he was sending some attacks, but you could see they were all green, so I actually won. Then you can see my attacks, and this is very useful for when you're trying to find certain different things. Then you do have the ability to mail back and forth, have your address book, things like that, and be able to mail internally or with other players, and basically keep lines of communication open, because a lot of times it's very important to be able to coordinate different attacks and things like that. You can see this is a tribe that I belong to, and you can see our profile, and then you can also see the different members. As you can see, I'm actually the top of the tribe. You can see all the different members and their different amounts. Then they do have the ranking. What's really cool about this is you can see here's the ranking. You can see we actually rank number 9 in the overall world for the tribes, and they can it goes down by players, and you can see I'm ranked 219. You can just put in whatever number you want. You can see here's the number 1 guy and stuff like that. You can see this soap tribe is very powerful because you can see they've got a lot of guys in the very top. Then you can also break it down by continents, and you can see in the continent that we're in, which is this one K51, we're actually the number 1 by quite a lot. And you can see for continent players, I'm number 3 because I have several of my villages that are actually outside of the continent. And then you can go down and you can see some other things. And then here's the awards that I was talking about. This will show you what different people have earned. And then I can go ahead and I can actually take a look at, here's mine. We can take a look at my individual sheet. You can see you earn rewards for different things. You made it to the top number 1 of a continent. You've already plundered, all these different things. And then here are the ones that I have yet to earn. So not a lot. And you can also see in the profile, you can see all the different villages that you have available. You've got basic settings and stuff like that, and then your ability for your premium account and all of that different things. And they also have, what's really cool is they have a mobile version which works really well on the different mobile accounts. So when you're when you're out, you're doing different things. If you're on like your iPhone or your Droid or things like that, you can still keep up with the game. And it's kind of helpful, especially when you're getting attacked and somebody's coming in like 4 hours, but you've got other things to do. So you can see the game is really, very in depth as far as, it's not this 3D fantasy MMO that you're going to get this constant stream of action from, but you'd be amazed at how in depth all the different little things are and little idiosyncrasies of the game, especially when you're maintaining, offensive villages and defensive villages, and you're getting into these large scale wars when there's there's tons and tons of players that are involved, and you're having to coordinate attacks because they take time to reach certain areas. It's one game that it's nice because I'm able to jump in at different times throughout the day and set different things to happen and things like that. And it's one of those games I personally am a fan of strategy games, so I really like it. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's trip inside the den. Don't forget to subscribe and keep yourself updated as each new episode is released. And if you'd like to play or learn more about Tribal Wars, you can read our full review at mmoden.com or just click the link in the description. Till next time, thanks for watching.